Hey everyone, J-Todd out here with Pocahontas, and here's what's happening this week in gambling.
This week in gambling in Vegas on Fremont Street Experience.
Hello friends, and thanks so much for joining me on This Week in Gambling. We have a lot to discuss on our program today. In fact, we're dedicating the entire show to what's happening with the Wire Act lawsuit. So let's get right into this week's big story. By now, I'm sure you know that the New Hampshire State Lottery has sued the U.S. Department of Justice over their recent change of opinion on the Federal Wire Act, an opinion that now believes the act applies to all forms of gambling, not just sports betting. Originally, the DOJ had given states 90 days to comply with their new opinion, or else enforcement action would be taken, an obvious attempt to criminalize online gambling in America. New Hampshire, however, correctly contended that the Wire Act only applies to bets placed on sporting events, and that the new DOJ opinion was a direct threat to state tax revenue. That's why they filed their lawsuit. And then 14 additional states piled on. It was at this point that the DOJ was like, oops, maybe we done messed up. And they issued a memo. Yes, a memo assuring states that, hey guys, come on, we're not gonna prosecute a lottery. I mean, you know us, we're the DOJ, it's all good. But the states were buying none of it, and the lawsuit began last week. First, the Justice Department argued that the case should be thrown out because there was no specific and credible fear of prosecution. Yeah, they said that with a straight face in open court after giving the states a 90-day ultimatum to comply or else, but the judge wasn't buying what they were selling. When that didn't work, the DOJ argued the case should be thrown out because there was no specific threat to lotteries. I mean, after all, Your Honor, we got a memo. But the judge wasn't catching what they were shoveling. You see, back in 2011, it was the lotteries that originally approached the Justice Department and asked for clarification on the Wire Act. It was then that the DOJ said it only applied to sports bets. And that, my friends, is what led directly to states regulating online lotteries, gambling, and poker. So now that the DOJ has changed their opinion, they cannot come back and argue that it selectively doesn't apply to lotteries. Memos be damned. In fact, when the judge looked at this, he said that if you take the new DOJ opinion as is, the Powerball could be considered a multi-state criminal conspiracy. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, hey, this sounds pretty good. Things are going our way. And yeah, it was good. But it wasn't all good. We're going to get into that in the second half of our program.
This week's exclusive offer is for Heavy Chips. Right now, you can take advantage of Casino City player specials for the Heavy Chips Casino and other sites. Simply follow the link in this video's description to visit online.casinocity.com for the details.
Before we get into the second half of our show and let you know how this all ends, I would ask you a favor. If you're enjoying this program and would like to help support our channel, please subscribe on YouTube. And when you do, click that bell at the top of the page. That way you'll get updates whenever we publish new videos. Okay, so let's talk about holding and dicta. I said holding and dicta, not holding a dicta. Yeah, it's It's legal terminology, and it could have a significant impact on what happens in this case. Basically, when a court makes a statement or gives an opinion on a proceeding, it's considered dicta, like dictation. It's just their opinion, and it's not really legally binding. Holding, on the other hand, comes with reasoning about why a legal decision was made by a court, and that is considered legally binding. So keep those two things in mind moving forward. Now, some of you may remember all the trouble that the United States had with the tiny little nation of Antigua back in 2014 when they tried to enforce the UIGEA. A lawsuit stemmed from that, a lawsuit with an opinion that could come back and bite the DOJ in the ass. In that case, the U.S. versus Lyons, the court ruled that the Federal Wire Act only applies to sports betting. So, if the judge in this case believes that that decision is holding, well, all of this could be over in our favor very quickly. But so far, doesn't look like the judge is leaning that way. Also, the judge in this case doesn't seem to believe he has the authority to make a decision about anything other than how this new opinion affects New Hampshire. He's already alluded to the fact that the other 14 states are going to have to settle this matter in their own jurisdictions. That said, many legal experts believe that no matter how the judge decides, this case will eventually end up at the Supreme Court. Even the judge himself mentioned that possibility. That's fine with me. I mean, we've already taken out PASPA. We might as well kneecap the Wire Act while we're at it. So here's where we are. The judge has decided to force the DOJ's hand. He has given them 14 days to define exactly how their new opinion is going to be enforced. Now, if they come back and say that it doesn't apply to lotteries, this case very well could be thrown out. Here's the thing though, if the DOJ does come back and say lotteries are exempt, they could be opening up Pandora's box. I mean, how do you cherry pick what you choose to enforce? How do you say this form of gambling is okay and this form of gambling is criminal? One thing I do know is that there are 14 other states all lined up ready to take a run at the DOJ on this issue. This case is going to illuminate a clear path for them to move forward with that. So, come rain or come shine, this case is a long way from over.
So, Pocahontas, I want you to tell me the truth.
Yes, dear.
How many times a night does people come up to you and say, I'd like to poke that Honest?
I'm afraid too many times on Fremont Street Experience.
Yeah, you girls, you work for tips, but not, you don't do anything for tips.
Nothing extra.
More fiber.